and flowing through 11 African nations. The Nile is not only the longest river on the planet, but also the lifeblood of a civilization that forever changed humankind. Amid the driest desert on Earth, where the heat scorches and sand stretches endlessly to the horizon, there winds a soft green ribbon carrying life, food, water, and even faith. The ancient Egyptians called this river Hapi, the god of blessings, both father and mother of all. They believed that every drop of the Nile contained the spirit of the divine, and that this river itself gave birth to Egypt. Unlike most other rivers, the Nile flows in reverse, from south to north. It begins in the tropical forests of Central Africa, where torrential rains form countless streams that merge into the White Nile. This river passes through Lake Victoria, one of the largest freshwater lakes in the world, then continues across South Sudan with the vast Sud wetlands, where land and water become one. Meanwhile, in the east, among the Rocky Mountains and deep valleys of the Ethiopian highlands, another river is born, the Blue Nile. When the rainy season comes, fierce waterfalls carry red, blood-colored silt northward. When the two branches meet in Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, they merge into one, the main Nile, the vital artery that flows through the desert, across thousands of years of history, all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. From above, the Nile looks like a shimmering blue ribbon slicing through the endless golden sands of the Sahara. On either bank lies the green of life. Beyond that, only the arid death of the desert. It is this boundary between life and oblivion that makes the Nile a natural wonder unlike any other on Earth. Everything we know about ancient Egypt, from the pyramids and the Sphinx to wheat fields and reed sailboats, exists thanks to the Nile. The pharaohs built temples and tombs along its banks, believing that following the Nile's flow was to follow the path leading to the afterlife. Lining both sides of the river are hundreds of villages and ancient cities. From Thebes, Luxor, and Aswan to Memphis and Giza, all lie along the Nile, like pearls strung on the necklace of the goddess Isis. It was here that humanity's oldest civilization was born, flourished, and left an indelible mark on world history. In the imagination of the ancient Egyptians, all life began from water. They believed the universe emerged from a primordial ocean, and that the Nile was its remnant, a place still ruled by the gods. Osiris, the god of life and death, was said to rest within its depths. Sobek, the crocodile-headed god, guarded the waters from evil spirits and blessed those who offered sacrifices. Isis, mourning as she searched for her husband's body, wept the first tears that became the river itself. That is why the Nile is not just a landscape. It is a religious symbol, a living legend. Every stream of water that flows through it is considered part of an eternal ritual between heaven and earth. Today, more than 150 million people depend on the Nile's waters for their survival. Gigantic dams like the Aswan High Dam in Egypt and the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam in Ethiopia have altered the ancient flow, turning the flood season into a distant memory. But no matter how advanced technology becomes, people along the river still believe the Nile has a soul of its own, a power that no one can ever fully control. From the small riverside villages to the bustling cities, the Nile remains a source of life, inspiration, and pride. It has witnessed countless dynasties rise and fall, countless mysteries uncovered and then lost again. And yet, through it all, its waters continue to flow, gentle, steady, unchanged for thousands of years. Long ago, the Egyptians said, "All life begins from water, and water itself is the soul of the Nile." But behind that calm surface, the Nile is not just a sacred river. It is an immense biological world, where thousands of species struggle, survive, and weave together the great symphony of life and death. From the year-round flooded Sud wetlands to the arid downstream deserts, every stretch of the river is its own universe, wild, mysterious, and governed by unforgiving laws. In its upper reaches, the Nile winds through vast floodplains. The Sud region of South Sudan is considered one of the largest swamps on the planet, where the water stretches to the horizon and dense vegetation grows on soft mud. Here, thousands of migratory birds from Europe and Asia make their stopovers. Brilliant pink flamingos cover the water's surface. White storks, wild ducks, Egyptian geese and fish eagles gather in great flocks. When the rainy season arrives, the wetlands transform into a noisy paradise. Birds calling to each other, water splashing, and insects humming endlessly. Beneath the surface lies a world few have ever seen. Nile tilapia can grow nearly 3 feet long. Giant Nile perch can weigh more than 440 pounds, and hundreds of smaller fish hide among floating plants. This has been the main food source for local people for thousands of years, and an endless source of inspiration for Africa's ancient hunting legends. When the river leaves the wetlands, it begins to cross dry, scorching lands where the law of survival is written in fangs and blood. No creature embodies that truth better than the Nile crocodile, the undisputed ruler of the waters. The Nile crocodile is the second largest predator in the world, surpassed only by the saltwater crocodile. An adult can grow over 16 feet long and weigh up to 1 ton. They lie in ambush beneath the muddy waters, motionless for hours, waiting for the moment a thirsty animal approaches the bank. A single strike, swift as lightning, and the victim is dragged below, where the cold water ends all struggle. The ancient Egyptians both feared and revered this creature. They believed crocodiles were the incarnation of Sobek, the river's guardian god and a symbol of nature's untamed power. In many temples, especially at Kom Ombo, archaeologists have found hundreds of carefully buried mummified crocodiles, a testament to the deep belief that even ferocity itself is a form of the sacred. Alongside the crocodile, the hippopotamus is a creature that commands awe from anyone who sets foot on the Nile. Weighing more than 6,600 pounds, and with jaws strong enough to crush hardwood, the hippo has earned its title as Africa's silent killer. Despite their bulky appearance, hippos can run faster than humans on land and swim with astonishing speed underwater. The ancient Egyptians recorded many stories of hippos attacking fishing boats or overturning merchant vessels that dared to pass through their waters. Yet, this creature was also revered as the embodiment of the goddess Tauret, the protector of pregnant women and newborns. From a spiritual perspective, the hippo's ferocity symbolized protection, like a mother fiercely defending new life from evil. If you look closely, you'll realize the Nile is never silent from the voices of the gods. Every creature here is intertwined with a story from ancient Egyptian culture. The ibis, with its long curved beak, represents Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing. It was believed that Thoth created hieroglyphs by observing the ibis's flight along the Nile. African wildcats living near ancient temples were seen as descendants of the goddess Bastet, the symbol of love and protection. Water snakes slithering through the marshes reminded the ancients of Apophis, the great serpent of darkness, the eternal enemy of the sun god Ra. Each night as darkness enveloped the river, people believed Ra had to battle Apophis so that the sun could rise again. Beyond its unique geography and rich ecosystems, the Nile has always captivated explorers with the mysteries that surround it. For thousands of years, the source of the Nile was one of humanity's greatest enigmas. The ancient Greeks called it the river without a beginning, for no one knew where it came from, only that it flowed endlessly, as if born from the heart of Mother Earth. From the time of Herodotus, the father of history, to the 19th century, countless explorers risked their lives to answer that question. Herodotus once wrote, "No one knows where the Nile begins, just as no one knows where the heart of the gods lies." He journeyed along the river and questioned local people, but received only mythical tales, that the river was born from the tears of the goddess Isis, that it began from an underground sea of life, or that its source lay in a place only the god Sobek was allowed to touch. During the Middle Ages, Arab and European maps depicted fantastical imagery: two sacred mountains, the Lunae Montes, or Mountains of the Moon, where the Nile was said to spring from a mysterious lake guarded by giant serpents. It was not until 1858 that British explorer John Hanning Speke claimed to have discovered Lake Victoria, declaring it the source of the White Nile. But his announcement sparked fierce debate, for Lake Victoria itself receives water from many smaller streams deep within the Congo forests, much of which remains uncharted even today. Centuries later, scientists are still debating. Some modern theories suggest that the Nile does not have a single point of origin, but rather forms part of an ancient underground river system connecting multiple water veins beneath Africa. Geologists using satellite imagery have discovered fossil rivers that once flowed millions of years ago, running parallel to today's Nile. This raises a question. Could the present-day Nile merely be the surface layer of a vast underground network, remnants of an age when the Sahara was once a green savanna? Deep within caves near its upper reaches, explorers have found prehistoric drawings depicting flowing rivers, forests, elephants, and giraffes. These images date back more than 10,000 years, to a time when today's desert regions were still lush and wet. This has led many archaeologists to believe that the Nile may once have flowed in a different direction, even reversed its course, a phenomenon almost unheard of in geology. If that is true, then the Nile is not only the longest river, but also the oldest surviving one, a witness to every climatic shift and every biological era of Earth. Perhaps that is why the ancient Egyptians believed the Nile to be immortal, because it neither begins nor ends anywhere. It simply is, always there, like time, like life, like the memory of the Earth itself. If the source of the Nile is a question of beginnings, then its sunken cities are the mystery of endings. Along the river's mouth, where the Nile meets the Mediterranean Sea, once stood magnificent cities, centers of commerce, religion, and power in ancient Egypt. Then one day they vanished without a trace. For thousands of years, people knew their names only from stone inscriptions: Heracleion, Canopus, Thonis, coastal cities once as splendid as Alexandria. But their true locations were lost, and scholars long dismissed them as myth, until the year 2000, when French underwater archaeologist Frank Goddio made a stunning discovery. While scanning the seafloor with sonar near Aboukir Bay, about 4 miles off the Egyptian coast, his team detected massive stone blocks arranged in precise geometric patterns. When divers descended to investigate, they found statues of pharaohs, stone steles, a temple dedicated to the goddess Isis, and colossal sculptures more than 16 feet tall, weighing tens of tons. All lay buried beneath layers of seabed silt, mysteriously preserved for over 1,200 years. The artifacts recovered from the site revealed a dramatic story. Heracleion was once Egypt's main harbor, where Greek, Roman, and Nubian trading ships arrived. It was also where pharaohs performed their coronation ceremonies, believed to be along the path of Osiris. But in the 8th century AD, a massive earthquake and tsunami caused the entire region to sink beneath the sea, taking nearby Canopus with it. Some researchers believe the main cause was geological subsidence. The Nile Delta rests on soft, waterlogged soil eroded by seawater over centuries. When seismic tremors struck, the ground destabilized, and the entire city was swallowed within hours. Yet certain details continue to baffle archaeologists. Why do so many monuments remain standing, unbroken, even after millennia underwater? And why do some steles bear strange symbols, unlike any known form of Egyptian writing? Mystics believe Heracleion was a gateway between the world of humans and gods, where the sacred resurrection rituals of Osiris were once performed. When humankind violated divine law, the gods caused the city to sink. This echoes the legend of Atlantis, and some theorists suggest that Atlantis was in fact Heracleion, a holy center consumed by the sea to guard its ancient secrets. Today, hundreds of statues, amulets, coins, and ritual vessels from Heracleion are displayed in museums. Yet most of the city still lies silent beneath the waves, unexplored. Perhaps beneath that quiet layer of mud, the stories of the pharaohs remain, kept by the river, waiting for the day when humanity becomes humble enough to listen. the Nile, a symbol of life and also a river of death. In Egypt's history, no place has been both as sacred and as terrifying as its banks. For alongside the brilliant festivals honoring Hapi and Isis, there once existed dark rituals the ancient Egyptians never spoke of, ceremonies that offered human lives in exchange for the mercy of the gods. Ancient records and writings by Greek scholars like Diodorus Siculus and Plutarch describe that, in the earliest dynasties, Egyptians believed that when the Nile failed to rise high enough, it was a sign that the god Hapi was angry. To seek forgiveness, they performed human sacrifices, often slaves or prisoners, cast into the river along with offerings of gold and precious stones. Some inscriptions depict young maidens dressed in white, wearing floral crowns, known as the brides of the river, offered as sacrifices to the water god. Of course, this ritual was later replaced with effigies or symbolic offerings. Yet many archaeological findings suggest that real human bodies were once cast into the river. In 2018, a research team from Cairo University discovered dozens of human skeletons buried under river mud near the city of Luxor, dating back to around 3,000 years before Christ. Evidence showed they did not die from battle or disease. They had been bound and thrown into the river while still alive. Some legends even claim that during years of unusually high floods, people could hear songs echoing from the water, believed to be the voices of the sacrificed souls. To this day, people along the Nile still release lotus flowers and oil lamps into the water during flood season as a way to soothe the ancient spirits. Modern scientists have tried to explain this phenomenon through natural acoustics. When water flows through underground caverns or strikes hollow rock formations, it can produce whistling or echoing sounds that resemble distant singing. But the locals have no desire to analyze it. Deep down, they believe the Nile is not just water. It is the memory of thousands of souls that have merged into it. Those rituals now exist only in mythology, but they reflect the powerful belief of ancient humanity that nature is a living entity capable of feeling anger and retribution. They offered up their lives to preserve the balance between man and God. A cruel exchange, but perhaps it was this very sacrifice that allowed the ancient Egyptians to feel the supernatural force of the river, something that we, with all our modern science, still understand only on the surface. Traveling along the Nile from Aswan to Giza, one can find hundreds of ancient structures resting silently by the water's edge, pyramids, temples, stone docks, and hidden chambers. Most have been studied, but some constructions continue to puzzle archaeologists, as their purpose and age remain entirely uncertain. One of the strangest discoveries lies near the town of Abydos, where the Egyptians believed the god Osiris was buried. In 1999, archaeologist David O'Connor uncovered an underground complex he called the Osirion, a massive stone chamber with 17 columns, each weighing tens of tons, built deep below the river's water level. What astonished him was that the architecture mirrored temples constructed thousands of years later, yet appeared far older, possibly dating back 12,000 years, long before the officially recognized Egyptian civilization. Who built it and how, when people of that era were thought to lack the tools for such precise stonework? Some scholars suggest the Osirion belonged to a pre-Egyptian civilization, a lost culture that once thrived along the Nile before the pharaohs. Those who support the ancient technology theory believe it was constructed by beings or civilizations beyond Earth, by the very gods the Egyptians later worshipped. Beyond the Osirion, there are also numerous ceremonial harbors, long stone ramps stretching hundreds of yards from the desert down to the river. Archaeologists once thought these were funeral boat docks, but several are not connected to any tombs. Instead, they align precisely with constellations in the sky, particularly Sirius and Orion, two celestial bodies the Egyptians believed were gateways for souls.